Early Christians used the term canon to refer to lots of things, sort of the standard of truth, the standard of teaching, but eventually it got attached to refer to the collection of scriptural books that we affirm is from God. The official definition I use in my book, this is a paraphrase, is something along the lines of the collection of scriptural books that God has given His corporate church. Now, the reason I use that definition, the collection of scriptural books that God has given His corporate church, is because it sort of sucks in all the key issues there. One of the major ones being that canon is not something that men ultimately determine. It's ultimately God that's determining canon. Men can receive canon, they can affirm it, they can acknowledge it, they can submit to it, or I guess not submit to it, but they are not the agent that constitutes canon. And this is where I think a lot of the misconceptions come into play, and particularly with our Roman Catholic friends. The idea of canon in many people's minds means authoritative church declarations. Or authoritative church teaching and things like this. Now, there's some truth in that, of course, because we think the church does make declarations about which books are from God. But one of the things about that definition that I want to point out to the listeners is that we think that canon ultimately is something that God determines. So if that's true, you can actually have a canon in principle without having anybody know about it or anybody respond to it. If God has given His books, then they can exist apart from any reception at all and still be technically canon. And so I cover this at length, both in Canon Revisited and in some journal articles I've written. But I think it's a good place to start to make sure we have our definition straight.